If you've ever felt like you were walking through this world with something ancient watching over you, something that doesn't make sense to anyone else, then this is your moment of remembrance. Because what most people call coincidence, we call design. There are forces that follow us not to haunt, but to hone. Not to limit us, but to lead us through the darkness we were born into. And if you've ever called yourself a dark chosen one, or if life has carved you into one through pain, isolation, and impossible awakenings, then you must understand this. You are not alone. You have never been alone. There are 7 divine forces that follow every dark chosen one. Not once, not sometimes, always. We don't talk about this openly because language fails where frequency begins. But we feel it. The pull. The presence. The sense that something is guiding us, even when we don't know where we're going. And the reason it's hard to name is because these forces don't operate on logic. They operate through initiation. Through moments that break us open and reconstruct us into something that cannot be explained, only embodied. These divine forces are not angels in the traditional sense. They are not sweet. They are not gentle. They are not here to make your life comfortable. They are here to make your soul undeniable. The first divine force is the Shatterer. It doesn't follow you to protect you. It follows you to dismantle everything you're not. Have you ever noticed that just when you begin to feel safe in an illusion, something comes and rips it away? That's the Shatterer doing its work. It isn't cruel, it's precise. It knows the exact moment your identity becomes a cage, and it doesn't wait for your permission. It breaks what must be broken. At first, it feels like punishment. But if you stay long enough, if you don't run, you'll feel the deeper truth. The Shatterer only comes to those who are ready for absolute authenticity. It's the divine force that destroys the version of you that was built for survival, so the one built for destiny can rise. The second force is the Veiled One. This is the force that clouds your vision until you learn to see with your inner eye. The reason so many dark chosen ones feel lost, confused, disconnected is because the Veiled One is walking beside them. Not to block them, but to train them to seek truth beneath appearances. This force hides clarity from the mind so that the soul can activate its own sight. You won't find your path on a Google map. You won't get it from a guru. You get it from being lost long enough to stop searching externally. The Veiled One is the reason you've had to let go of so many plans, so many ideas of who you were supposed to be. Because until you stop needing certainty, you can't hold wisdom. And that's what the Veiled One is preparing you for, deep embodied wisdom that cannot be taken from you. The third force is the Echo. This one is subtle, almost invisible, but it's always there. The Echo is the divine force that repeats cycles not to trap you, but to awaken you. Every time you repeat a painful pattern, every time you find yourself back in the same emotional spiral, the Echo is present. It is not mocking you. It is mirroring you. It's showing you the exact place where you're still choosing from unhealed identity. And here's the secret. When you finally break a cycle, the Echo doesn't vanish. It amplifies the new pattern. It begins to reflect your healing, your power, your truth. That's why your journey feels like a spiral, not a straight line. Because the Echo is teaching you that frequency comes before form. And until you shift the frequency, the form will always return. But But once you do, once you anchor the new code, the echo becomes your greatest ally. The fourth is the guardian of silence. This one is the most misunderstood because it shows up as nothing. It shows up as the void, the absence of signs, the silence after prayer, the emptiness after awakening. And it's in that space that most people give up. But we learn to listen differently. The guardian of silence doesn't speak in words. It speaks in resonance. It teaches you to feel what's true, even when nothing makes sense. This is the force that teaches you to sit with yourself until the noise of the world fades and the voice of your soul becomes louder than your fear. It's in the silence where the most sacred downloads arrive. It's in the stillness where the divine blueprint reveals itself. And if you can stay in that silence without needing to escape, you'll begin to hear the instructions that were always there beneath the noise. The fifth force is the mirror flame. This one is fierce. It brings people into your life who trigger every wound, every insecurity, every shadow you thought you buried. Not to hurt you, but to burn away what is false. The mirror flame is not a person, it's a frequency that incarnates through the people who activate your deepest pain. The toxic ex, the betraying friend, the parent who never saw you, the boss who belittled your power. These are not random characters. They are assignments. They are carriers of the mirror flame, and they show up to reflect what you've hidden from yourself. But once you see it, once you stop blaming them and start integrating the reflection, the mirror flame transforms. It becomes purification. It becomes your forge. And you become someone who no longer fears being triggered because you know the fire is refining you. The sixth divine force is the architect of pressure. This one is relentless. It follows you not to comfort you, but to compress you into clarity. This is the force that makes everything feel urgent, heavy, intense. The reason you feel like you're running out of time. The reason you feel like your dreams are too heavy to carry. The architect of pressure isn't trying to crush you. It's trying to collapse the timelines that no longer serve you. Pressure, when embraced, becomes focus. It cuts away distraction. It demands devotion. It builds resilience. Without pressure, we stay in potential. With pressure, we become powerful. So if you've been feeling like life keeps turning up the heat, understand that it's not punishment. It's preparation. The architect is shaping a vessel strong enough to hold the frequency you came to transmit. And the seventh, perhaps the most divine of them all, is the keeper of the gate. This force only appears at thresholds. It doesn't walk with you every day, but it shows up at those sacred moments where everything could shift. And it asks you one question. Are you willing to leave behind everything you built in survival to step into what you were born to become? The keeper doesn't open the gate for you. It waits. It watches. It measures your readiness by your willingness to let go. And if you're not ready, it doesn't punish you. It simply vanishes until you are. But if you say yes, truly yes, the gate opens. And what waits on the other side is not comfort. It's congruence, a reality that matches your soul, a life that doesn't ask you to shrink, a path that demands all of you but gives you everything in return. These seven forces are not imaginary. They are not myth. They are energetic laws encoded into the blueprint of every dark chosen one. We don't earn them, we remember them. And once we do, we stop fighting our path. We stop resisting the fire. We stop asking why it's so hard, and we start asking the real question: what is all this pressure trying to make of me? When you understand these forces, your pain starts to make sense. Your cycles start to reveal their purpose. Your silence becomes sacred. Your triggers become teachers, and your pressure becomes a prophecy. The sacred agreement, why these forces chose you and what happens if you ignore them. Now that we've named the 7 divine forces, the next revelation is even more sacred and even more dangerous, because it's not just about knowing they exist. It's about realizing they are building your life from the inside out. Not metaphorically, literally. These forces are the hidden architects of your journey. They are the invisible scaffolding behind every break, every betrayal, every breakthrough. And if you learn how to move with them instead of fighting them, your entire life becomes a living prophecy, a temple of frequency, a walking transmission. But let's be clear, this isn't about becoming more spiritual. It's about becoming more aligned. You don't need more rituals. You don't need more mantras. You need alignment with the forces that already walk with you. Because whether you're aware of it or not, these 7 beings are building you. Every time you think your life is falling apart, they are actually constructing the exact conditions needed for your next evolution. And the more you resist, the longer it takes. The more you surrender, the faster your soul expands. Let's start with the Shatterer again. When this force enters your life, everything false begins to collapse. Relationships, jobs, identities you outgrew but clung to. And it feels violent. It feels cruel. But what's actually happening is this: your soul is trying to break through the container of your ego. You thought you needed those things to survive. But the Shatterer knows they were limiting your expansion. So it tears them down. If you try to rebuild them, you suffer. But if you let the ruins speak, you begin to see the blueprint underneath the destruction. Nothing is ever taken without something more aligned being prepared. But the old must be cleared before the new can land. The Veiled One works differently. It creates fog, confusion. It pulls the ground out from under you, so you stop trusting your mind and start trusting your resonance. This force exists to sharpen your intuitive compass. It withholds answers until you stop looking outward and start listening inward. That's why so many dark chosen ones go through periods of deep confusion. Because the Veiled One is teaching them to see without eyes, to hear without ears, to choose without proof. And once you master that, once you can walk through the fog without fear, suddenly the path reveals itself. Not as a map, as a frequency pull. You stop chasing direction. You start following energy. The echo, as we said, mirrors your unconscious patterns. But what most don't realize is that it also mirrors your potential. When you shift your frequency by even 1%, the echo starts to reflect that shift exponentially. That's why breakthroughs often seem sudden. They're not. They're the result of countless micro shifts that finally reach critical mass. The echo doesn't care about your words. It responds to your actual vibration. So if you're wondering why your reality hasn't changed, ask yourself, what frequency am I actually living in, not just affirming with my mouth? but anchoring with my actions. That's what the echo responds to, every time, without fail. The guardian of silence is building your capacity to hold sacred energy. Silence is not emptiness. It's a container. It's a womb. It's where the next version of you begins to crystallize. But if you can't sit with silence, you'll never access your deepest codes. Most people run from silence because it confronts them with everything unresolved. But the ones who stay, who breathe through the discomfort, who listen without needing answers, those are the ones who become portals. The guardian is not denying you guidance. It's waiting for you to become the kind of vessel that can receive it without distortion. And when you're ready, the silence sings. The mirror flame trains you in sovereignty. Every single person who triggers you is a mirror showing you where you're still reactive, where you're still conditional, where you're still outsourcing your power. But here's the twist. The more you integrate your shadows, the more the mirror flame begins to reflect your divinity instead. You start meeting people who activate your gifts, your joy, your power, because you've cleared the distortion. The mirror flame never leaves, it just shifts form. From fire that burns to fire that illuminates, from pain to partnership, from trauma to truth. And that's when you realize every trigger was a training. Every heartbreak was a lesson in self-remembrance. The architect of pressure is perhaps the most misunderstood. Most people think pressure means they're doing something wrong. But pressure is the first sign of power arriving. Think about it. Diamonds are made through compression. Stars are born through collapse. And your highest timeline is unlocked through strategic intensity. The architect is not trying to break you. It's trying to refine you into a vessel that can hold more light without leaking. If you keep avoiding pressure, you stay soft. You stay scattered. But if you meet it with breath, with regulation, with intention, you become sharp, focused, magnetic. That's when pressure becomes acceleration, not resistance, momentum. And then, the keeper of the gate. This force is sacred beyond words. It only shows up at thresholds, moments where your entire identity must die so something new can be born. It doesn't tell you what's on the other side. It doesn't promise safety. It simply asks, will you step forward with no guarantee but your own resonance? And if you say yes fully, without condition, the gate opens. Not just in your life, but in your timeline. You quantum shift. You collapse years of struggle into moments of clarity. Not because magic happened, but because you matched the frequency of your next level. And the keeper recognized the signal. Now here's the deeper truth. These forces do not follow every human. They follow the ones who agreed to carry codes, the ones who chose to incarnate with missions that would disrupt patterns, liberate lineages, and activate dormant frequencies in the collective. If you resonate with this message, you are one of those carriers. And that means these 7 forces are not optional. They are contractual. You agreed to walk with them before you were born. And they agreed to walk with you, even when you forgot why it hurt so much. This is the invisible architecture of your destiny. It's not built in temples. It's built in trauma, in silence. In the moments where everything inside you said, I can't, and something deeper said, but I must. That voice? That's the voice of your soul, remembering the architecture. And when you start to live with the forces instead of against them, You stop cycling. You start ascending through shadow. You stop asking for signs. You become the sign. You stop seeking the way. You walk as the way. So let me ask you the most sacred question yet. What if your entire life has been a training ground for one moment of divine embodiment, and that moment is now? What if everything that broke you was building the vessel required to carry your highest frequency on earth? Could you honor the pain then? Could you bless the silence? Could you stop asking why me and start asking what now? You were never here to fit in, you were sent to recode reality. This is the final transmission. And if you're still here, it means something sacred has already been activated in you. You're not just listening anymore, you're remembering. You're not just watching a video, you're unlocking a contract. Because that's what this is. A contract between your soul and the divine forces that have been walking with you since before you had a name. This part isn't about learning. It's about responding. Because now you know the forces. You felt their fingerprints on your life. You've seen how they shape reality through pressure, silence, triggers, and collapse. But what you need to see now is this: you chose them. And they chose you. Before you incarnated, there was a moment, a single, sacred moment when your soul stood before the architects of destiny. And they asked you one question: are you willing to carry the codes that others are too afraid to hold? Not because you're better, not because you're more special, but because you're built for intensity, for transmutation, for sacred disruption. And when you said yes, they didn't give you a map. They gave you companions. These 7 divine forces, not to save you, but to forge you, to walk beside you in the places most would not survive. They knew you wouldn't remember the agreement, but they also knew that one day, maybe today, you would feel it in your bones. That's why your life has never made sense in conventional terms. That's why you felt out of place, misunderstood, even punished. Because you've been trying to live a human life with a non-human mission. You weren't sent here to fit in. You were sent to recode the field, to disrupt the inherited patterns, and to break the generational spells, to speak light into dead systems. And it's these very forces, the Shatterer, the Veiled One, the Echo, the Guardian of Silence, the Mirror Flame, the Architect of Pressure, and the Keeper of the Gate that have been preparing you, not for comfort, but for command. But here's the part most people don't talk about: what happens when you ignore them, when you numb out, when you delay your initiation, when you try to play small, stay safe, blend in. The forces don't leave, they intensify, because they are not passive. They are not neutral. They are contractual. And when you try to suppress your mission, they will dismantle the life you built in fear, not to punish you, but to realign you. That's why the things you thought were stable suddenly collapse. That's why the relationships you depended on begin to fracture. That's why you feel like you're walking through fire, because you're out of alignment with the agreement. And the deeper truth is, the longer you resist, the more painful it becomes. But the moment you say yes to your path, everything begins to shift. Not always instantly, but energetically. The forces stop working against your illusions and start working with your essence. Synchronicities increase. Clarity returns. Power flows. Not because life becomes easier, but because you've become congruent. You've said to the universe, I remember. I accept. I'm ready. And the universe answers, finally. So what does it look like to live in alignment with these divine forces? It looks like radical honesty. It looks like saying no when your nervous system is screaming, even if no one understands. It looks like leaving spaces that cannot hold your truth. It looks like choosing purpose over popularity, depth over comfort, frequency over approval. It looks like becoming the embodiment of the thing you used to pray for. And it's not glamorous. It's not always beautiful. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it's terrifying. But it's real. And that's what these forces are here for, to strip away everything that's false so your essence can lead. Because the world doesn't need more perfection. It needs presence. It needs you. But here's the paradox. The more you walk in alignment with these forces, the less you feel like you're doing anything. You begin to realize that you are not here to force reality. You are here to resonate at such a precise frequency that reality organizes itself around you. That's what the dark chosen ones carry, the frequency of divine inevitability. When you walk into a room, the energy shifts, not because you're trying, but because your field is clear, because your architecture is congruent, because your walk is coded with remembrance. Let's go deeper. What does it mean to recode reality? It means you stop reacting to the external world and start emitting a signal so strong it overrides the collective programming. It means you stop fighting the matrix and start rewriting it with your presence. It means you carry a vibration that breaks generational trauma without speaking a word, that heals others simply by looking them in the eye, that activates people just by being in their proximity. This is not imagination. This is spiritual physics, and it's what you were built for. You weren't meant to be a follower. You were meant to be a frequency leader, not a guru, not an influencer, a template breaker. Someone who lives in such deep integrity with their soul contract that timelines bend around them, that old systems collapse in their presence, that others begin to remember who they are just by witnessing you walk as who you are. But to do that, you must stop seeking permission. You must stop waiting to be ready. You must stop trying to be relatable. You must become who you were before the world taught you to forget. The world needs your fire, your edge, your codes. The parts of you that feel too intense, too deep, too weird. Those are the parts that carry the medicine for this timeline. So let me ask you one last question, one that only the soul can answer. If you knew that your pain, your silence, your weirdness, your intensity, your frequency was the exact thing that would shift the world around you, would you still try to tone it down? Or would you finally let yourself expand into the force you were born to be? Because here's the truth. You don't need more time. You don't need more proof. You don't need more signs. You are the sign. You are the proof. You are the transmission. And everything you've been through was not just suffering. It was strategy. Everything you lost was not failure. It was refinement. And everything that broke you was not the end. It was the forging of the vessel that can carry the divine forces encoded into your very being. So now you choose, not with your mind, with your frequency. Will you respond to the call? Will you rise? Will you walk not as a seeker but as a source? Because the forces are still with you. They always have been. Now it's your turn to walk with them. You were never here to fit in. You were sent to recode reality and transmit.